This week in Aristeia 99, it's BanzaiZAP's favorite little robot, Kozmo. So we're going to get to the stats really quick here. So Kozmo has an initiative of 4, a movement of 3, an energy of 5, and a health of 4. Defensively, she has a green, a blue, and a yellow. I would say that's pretty good actually. Definitely better than average, but I wouldn't say it's as good as, say, Maximus, who's got the green, blue, and an automatic shield. However, when you see a yellow, there's a switch at play. Next up would be her brawl. Her brawl is a green and a black. So pretty good, but probably not so many fancy tricks with this. And of course, her disengage is an amazing yellow. Not the best, but there's a reason for it. Her character switch is a bang and a shield. She can place a smoke token within range 0 to 5 with no line of sight. This is really nice, especially when you consider that her defense roll, again, is a green, a blue, and a yellow. She's got a fairly reasonable chance of hitting this, and smoke is probably Kozmo's biggest friend. So first off, we're going to look at Supernova. This is a 2 energy attack for Kozmo. She gets to roll a red, a blue, and a black. This is range 1 to 2, line of sight required. If you happen to get a bang, then she can impose the burning state to all adjacent enemies. This is really nice. Burning, as we've covered with Padre Mendoza, is a very scary state for really a lot of characters because it's one of the only states that stack. So if you're going to do this, great. If you want that bang, if you want that switch to go off, you may want to consider adding yellows if possible. And certainly because you can get multiple switch activations for this, having her just layer up a bunch of burning tokens on opponents, well, that's a really good use of the card. The more enemies around her, the better for that. After that is a green ability called Meteoric Charge. This is fun because there's actually no roll involved. Everything that happens just happens. First off, Kozmo is going to gain 5 movement points. So when you see the 3 movements she had earlier on, normally Meteoric Charge kind of makes up for that. In that, yes, it will, if you decide to move and do Meteoric Charge, you're going to use up all your energy. Can't lie about that. The math is right there. But that would also give you a grand total of 8 movement points, effectively bringing her up to a 4. This is kind of nice. But the other thing you're paying for is until the end of your activation, your agility roll, your disengage, is a red and 2 oranges. This is much better than the single yellow that she would normally have. So this is also the ability that makes her really good for one trying to score. She can get away from opponents who are trying to keep her locked down a lot easier with this. She'd be really difficult to shut down in this case. So you go from here to there, and even on top of that, if there's no one for her to disengage from, it's still more movement for her than she would get from running twice. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 plus gets you 3 movements, plus the 5 gets you 8. That's good. That's an improvement. Now, the trick with this, of course, being is if you happen to have an additional energy card, it doesn't really help in that situation. You would be better off, arguably, giving her the extra action point, the extra energy, getting her 6, than cashing in her movements 3 times for 9. That's just how it works. And of course you want to get the bonus for disengaging. Next up would be Nebula. Now this is a rolling green ability. It costs 1 energy. You will get an orange and a yellow, but the nice thing about this is its range 0 to 5, no line of sight required. So obviously that right there is very powerful. Kozmo doesn't have to be able to see to get there. So cross obstacles, for instance, wonderful. Into the enemy, into the melee, into the scrum, fantastic. But more than that, smoke won't block it, although she doesn't worry about smoke, more on that later. So anyhow, you get a success, and you get to place a smoke token on a space within range. Now, if you want to get more smoke out than just that, then you've got a chance of hitting her switch as well, which is very nice. Simply adding a blue would probably help that quite a bit, just because she already has the yellow. So the orange is, you want that more for the successes, so you would want to synergize the yellow die with a blue die and try to get your defenses off there. And again, they all have successes, but you just want to make sure that you get the shields which she needs for her character switch. Finally is Kozmo's orange. It's called Multi-Spectral Visor. Those of you who play Infinity, I don't actually. I really want to, but I don't. Or recognize the term there, and you already have an idea what it means. Ignore the effects of smoke. Now, normally smoke has blocks line of sight, and that's really an important thing about it. You can use that to shut down characters like Wild Bill, like Major Luna, people like that. If they can't see, then they can't attack. This is really important. Kozmo isn't bothered by that. And this kind of comes into play with, would come into play with Nebula, certainly, or if for some reason you had to use Contender, very important there. But more than that, she can add an orange to her attack rolls if the target is dazzled, although she doesn't have a on-card way of getting someone dazzled, or on a space with smoke. So for instance, if you wanted to do something, say you're adjacent to some enemies, what you could do in that case is, before you do anything else, you use Nebula and you put smoke down where they are. Then you can move up to them. It's 2, so you spent 3. Then you could do Supernova and get an extra nice little blast onto them for an additional orange die. So that'd be a red, an orange, a blue, and a black. Similarly, you could just, if you're got 1 or 2 next to you, certainly would be the case with the Master of Puppet characters, with their minions. You would put down smoke, 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 and then Supernova, and there would be that boosted damage in all of them, because you would probably want to be clearing them out at that point. Kozmo's first tactic is Asteroid Belt. When an enemy declares an attack against an ally, and Kozmo is inside the hexadome, swap the positions of the defender, so your ally, defender, ally, and Kozmo, then place the defender adjacent to Kozmo. Kozmo now becomes the target of this attack. Now, if you've ever listened to Enter the Hexadome, they actually did talk about the best tanks in the game, and this was one of the abilities that actually put Kozmo into the running for that. The fact that if she is on the board, she can, from anywhere on the board, switch places with someone else. So even if they're clear across the board, there's not a specified range. So it's basically teleportation. On top of that, if someone is attacking a character, who is in the scoring zone, then, well, in many of the scenarios, if you outnumber your opponent, then you're the one who's favored for the scoring. At the very least, you can tie, and when that happens, either you get maybe one victory point or sometimes nothing. It can be a little brutal that way. So Astro Belt is fantastic. It's Kozmo specific, but it's not on Kozmo's turn. So this is explicitly a team beneficial tactic, and you do need to make sure that when you bring Kozmo in, you're not necessarily just sending Kozmo in to die. You don't want to, unless of course that one character is really important. You'll have to think about is there going to be a trade. Certainly, if Musashi is right there, it could be ugly. But as a result of that, though, you would want to consider where you're going to place the allied character. So, because they have to be adjacent to Kozmo, that doesn't mean they have to be adjacent to the enemy. They could be right behind Kozmo or to the side. Just one hex away will usually ruin the day of most melee characters. And if it's a ranged attack, well, being behind Kozmo is still a good thing. Next up is infinite density. During the action step of one of your character's activations, impose the immobilized state to a target that is dazzled or on a space with a smoke token. This is a really fun tactics card depending on your team composition. So if you have a way to get someone dazzled, Yatta would be a good example, or if you got smoke tokens going all over the place, having the added benefit of immobilizing them as well is really nice, because if they're dazzled, they can't see. If they're in smoke, well, they can't see. So making it so they can't get out of it either is really nice. Now, this doesn't affect displacement, obviously. Displacing is not the same as moving, and it's not affected by immobilize. But if you got a character who needs to move, you can inflict this on them. This is really good, but I think it does depend on your team composition. If you're relying strictly on smoke, no, that's good, don't get me wrong, but I think it becomes a stronger card if you have another character who can add dazzled or put down smoke. Tau, perhaps, or Yatta, someone like that. Next up is gravitational slingshot. During the action step of Kozmo's activation, place an adjacent target on any free space within ranges 1 to 3, no line of sight required. This could be a lot of fun, let's be perfectly honest. So first off, this could be a fastball special where you can take an ally and move them, basically place them anywhere within 1 to 3. No line of sight required. This can be getting them out of trouble. This can be getting them into a situation set up for later on. There's just any number of ways you can use that. Next up is the fact that the adjacent targets doesn't have to be an ally. It can be an enemy. So you can, again, get them the heck away from you because you don't want them around. You could put them right next to someone they don't want to be next to, Musashi, for instance. You could get them out of a scoring zone. There's all sorts of fun you can have with that. But here's the really fun part about this. The obstacles can be valid targets. So when you're using gravitational slingshot, you can decide to take the obstacle that normally impedes movement, doesn't block line of sight, but impedes movement, and move it somewhere else, somewhere beneficial to you or detrimental to your opponent. And that's kind of nice. It's just a little bit of board manipulation. You can't go crazy with it, but I think this is one of those cards, the sheer versatility you get out of it is something that really needs to be thought about, especially for scenario play. If you're doing King of the Hill or Blitz or any of those things, this could be a very powerful card for you. Finally, we're going to look at stellar nucleosynthesis. That's a hard thing to say on the first try. During the action step of one of your character's activations, so anyone can do this one, inflict 2 wounds to a target that is dazzled or on a space with a smoke token. So again, you see this kind of repetition of dazzled orange smoke. And, again, it kind of mechanically is similar in that regard. It limits line of sight. They can't use their successes against you when they're attacked at range, that sort of thing. But it's another way to make use of that. So, for instance, you go up with Kozmo, you could Nebula, put smoke on someone, go up to them, do Supernova, do however much damage, and to finish them off, you could play the stellar nucleosis because it's not an attack. They can't defend against it, and that would possibly be enough to push a lot of characters over the edge. You could get a pretty good amount of damage. And this is to a target. That's kind of the key here too. It's not to all targets, just one. So you will want to pick and choose based off of that. But again, it stacks and there's no range on it. So again, if it could be clear across the board, and they could be dazzled by someone else or in smoke from someone else, but you just play that and all of a sudden they just, bam, they take 2 points of damage. If they happen to have a no, well, maybe they'll use it on this. 2 damage is nothing to sneeze at, but unless, contextually speaking, it's important enough to deal with, maybe they'll let it go. And again, you only have to really worry about if they have Tao or if they have the standard deck. The other decks don't necessarily have a response to that when it's played. That's Kozmo. Kozmo has been a fun part of many of our games. She is a very good scorer. If someone clumps up too many of their team in one place, she's good in punching that. She's good at defending her teammates, both from immediate attacks, melee-wise, to ranged attacks. There's just some really great options that Kozmo brings to the game. So, next week we're going to be looking at Muter. Till then, like, comment, and subscribe. We do have affiliate links to Amazon down below if you want to buy Aristeia or if you want to buy the Smoke and Mirrors expansion. We'll talk to you next week. Bye.